In today's episode, I interview the amazing Michael Davis. He's a photographer and storyteller, and we talked about the importance of storytelling in photography and the transition from digital products to print products. This is something I'm very passionate about and truly believe in. And Michael shares his journey in becoming a photographer and how he discovered the power of preserving memories through his art. We also talked about the values of printed photographs and preserving those stories by creating lasting moments and memories for your clients. Michael also talks about the importance of brand alignment and simplifying the product offerings to make it easier for your client to make decisions. We also touched on unpacking your own trauma behind money and how it affects pricing strategies. And again, this is something I am very passionate about and understand that mindset change that people need to have. I'm super excited for you guys to hear this conversation. I hope you really enjoy it too. Welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast, where we bridge the gap between the creativity you love and the CEO mindset you need. I'm your host, Nata Salvatori, wedding photographer and business educator. Find full show notes and resources at accidentalceopod.com. Let's get into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Accidental CEO podcast. I have a super special guest with me today. I cannot wait for you guys to listen to this conversation. Michael Davis, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. I really appreciate this and the community that you've built. I'm excited to chat with you.
We cannot wait. All right, so I want everybody to know just who you are first. Tell us where you are, who you are, and then we dive into your story of being an accidental CEO too.
Yeah. So I am Michael Davis of Michael Davis Photography. I've been a photographer since 2011, been full-time since 2016. I've kind of traveled all over the country, but now I'm based in Austin, Texas. And I love what I do, and I love the clients. And as a storyteller and photographer, I really enjoy connecting people's stories with my artistry and being able to preserve their legacies.
That's awesome. I feel like it's good to see yourself in that life storytelling kind of situation as a photographer, because a lot of times we forget, yes, we're capturing moments, but we're trying to tell stories at the end of the day. That's what those moments should be doing when we put them all together. So I like how you describe it.
I think the problem is that in our industry, there's buzzwords, right?
Yeah.
Storyteller is one of those buzzwords where most people aren't storytellers. Like maybe they're just really good at portraits or they're really good at capturing moments. In order to be a storyteller, you need to see the story all the way through, right? And so one of the things when I tell my students, and if I'm speaking at conferences, I always talk about, think about a cookbook. The recipe is not what matters. It's the fact that this has been passed down from generations to generations, and the stories that like our parents will have of cooking with their parents, and like that's what matters. Like that's the story. It's not in how the food is made. It's in the memories and the connections and all of that. And so when people just leave, their photos like digitally or like as is, like we miss those connections. Like we miss the story. It's like, yes, that's a nice picture. Yes, that's a nice moment. But can you call yourself a storyteller if you're not creating those moments for generations to talk about? This is what happened. Like, this is my parents. This is my family. This is my sister. This is what happened in that moment that made her smile so much. And these are all the things I remember about her. Like that's preservation.
He's dropping gems already, people. You better grab your pen and paper. We're not even 5 minutes into this. Yes. I love it. Tell us your story. How did you end up in photography? How did you end up having your own company and your own business?
So, interestingly enough, it's a lot of parallels to, like I said, I just finished listening to your first episode, which was absolutely amazing. Congratulations on getting that out. I actually started at high school, right? And I didn't want to take gym. So I took art instead. There was like a gym or art thing. And then I started taking art class in probably my sophomore year of high school. I went to college for digital art. I did my master's in arts administration. I literally graduated college doing video production for middle school kids. and it's like those moments we talk about stories, those moments that the fact that I didn't want to take gym led me down this creative path of pursuing artwork, and as a service oriented person, being able to share my work, and communicate stories of other people, right? So that's how the artist started out, and I think the storyteller started out is because I was doing digital storytelling my in 2007 is when I graduated college. That was my senior thesis, and I was working with middle school kids, and we would give them cameras and they would take pictures in their neighborhoods, and the English department will work with the students and crafting different narratives about what they're taking pictures of, and my job was to put all that stuff together, right? And it was beautiful to see the images that these kids in Philly took, because I was born and raised in Philadelphia, and the stories that came with it, and they made that, like, they put that together, they had that is like that ownership of their own narrative, and I really enjoyed giving people that ownership and giving people that agency, that I started teaching middle schools video production and storytelling, and giving them a voice, if you will. And so that kind of graduated into me running a video production summer camp, and I was doing that for a few years, and doing some video production during the week. And if you remember, in the early 2000s, camera and video, they were separate, like photo and video. The technology wasn't there yet. Like, they weren't doing the same thing, especially on affordable cameras, right? They were not doing the same thing at all. So I had an impasse. My wife was like, we need to make some money doing this thing,
And
right? And so I was like, you know what? Photo had a quicker return on investment. I started taking photos, doing portraits. I did a portrait of a couple, and a friend that they went to high school with hired me to photograph their wedding the next year, right? And this was in 2011 is when I photographed my first wedding. And surprisingly enough, I charged $500 as well.
I was just gonna say, how much money did you make on that first
Yep,
one?
$500, our first wedding, and the
Baller.
only thing I regret was wearing dress shoes. I wore dress shoes for the wedding day because I was like, oh, let me look nice. I had my suit, my tie on, my dress shoes, and I was just like, never again will I wear dress shoes to a wedding day. My feet hurt like hell. But it was beautiful. It was such a rush and adrenaline, and I was like, this is amazing. I love it. And that was in 2011, and I never looked back. And I've been photographing weddings ever since. And each year, each couple, each wedding, I get better and better at seeing the stories that no one else sees.
What do you think it helps you see the story differently than other photographers?
So I believe we all have a superpower, right? And my superpower is active listening. I'm really good at being able to see and hear the things that people aren't saying, but that they really mean to say, and filling in the blanks, and that fabric, right? And so, for example, I know if I'm in a bridal suite, okay, and everyone is talking about the bride's father, or how great he is, or all the things that they've done for him, or you're like, I know that there's a deeper story in there than just, oh, this is my dad. Like, I know that like, he has had an impact on more than just his child. And so there's the story there, and there's the emotions there, and then we craft images that really showcase what that means to not only the daughter or the son, but to the actual community. And then you have the floodgates open up, and all the things, and it creates beautiful imagery because it's paying attention to all the little things, the children that are in the wedding day, the grandmother that came and was just in the hospital like last week, and they got her to the wedding day, and it's like, it's those things that matter the most, right? And it took me a while to figure this out. It took me a while to block all of the photography noise away, right? Because the Instagrams, the magazines, the everything, they don't showcase this stuff, right? They showcase the pretty portraits. And so I had to literally put on blockers on and say, pretty portraits are great, but stories is really what matters. And as I started to get into selling prints and albums, I realized that my clients paid more attention to their stories than how great they looked in the dress. They paid more attention to the people that were in the pictures. They paid more attention to the moments, the hugs, the dancing, the laughter, mom on the table. They paid attention to more of that stuff. And that stuff filled the album than the portrait that I had like this creative lighting on. It was really dramatic or, all the things that I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And they were like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I'll put one in there.
Yeah, And so that kind of practice, that practice and that listening to my clients over and over and understanding what really matters. And also doing that same internal reflection. Like I have children and I travel and I print out pictures and they look at their pictures and they tell me where they were, what they were doing, the amazing moments that they had in these pictures that wasn't even in the picture, like memories and moments of people that weren't even in the picture, they recall just by looking at that image. And it's like, that's the power of photography.
I think a lot of that comes from stepping out of the position of these pictures are for me, right? So as a photographer, you're the one that wants to take that really cool portrait with the cool lighting. They can care less. People really rarely know the difference between good and great,
Yep.
right? When they are looking at a picture. So once you understand that your job is to serve them, is to take those pictures for them, to help them remember the occasion, to help them tell the story, then you start seeing the situation differently. You start seeing those moments that are going to be important to look at 20 years down the road. Yes, that portrait is great, but it doesn't really tell anything emotionally. But that picture of the dad crying when he saw his daughter for the first time during the first look, that's going to be a very important picture forever and ever. So, but you have to take a step back and understand that what you're capturing that day is for them and not for yourself. So,
When I teach at conferences or do one-on-ones with photographers, I'm like, you have to swallow your ego.
oh, yeah.
Like photographers need to swallow their ego. If they're trying to be successful in their craft, like you have to swallow your ego because your badass portraits are only going to get you but so far.
Tell us what make you make the switch from delivering digitals to offering products? Because that's something that a lot of photographers are they're not sure. Should they do them? Should they do it? Can they even do it? Where do they start? So what made you make the switch?
So I will say it was when I went full time in 2016. That's when I moved from Philly to I lied to you, from Baltimore back to Pennsylvania because like you, I've been traveling a lot, right?
We've been places.
And I finally went full time, and I was just like, I was on this mental shift about value. What is value added? How do I make more money without adding more to my packages? Right? Because I think that most photographers are like, oh, let me throw in all of this extra bells and whistles, in order to make more money. And I'm just like, it's not necessary. Like, you don't have to do that. You just have to add more value. And that doesn't necessarily mean adding more hours or adding another photographer or adding a videographer. It just means, like, how are you showing them that you care about them? How are you showing them that, they are the priority of that day in your time? And so I was on this journey of what does value add look like? I was like, there has to be a way for me to make more money without working with more clients. I've done the 40 weddings in a year, and I was just like, no. Like and like before 2016, I photographed 40 weddings. I did my six figures. I have no clue where that money is at all. Like, not, I was in
Dog
grad
ate it.
school, I was working full time, I had two kids, I was married, and I did not have a life. And I was like, I don't want that ever again. I don't want that. And so that mindset train got me onto, okay, I want to do this. And I think that's the first step is mentally being ready, because I can't help anybody shift if they're not ready, if they're not already asking those questions. So me mentally being ready, and then me seeking out mentorship and finding mentorship in my mentor, Dr. Tamaya Coben, and going through that process. And I fell in love with sales. I fell in love with in-person sales. And I was just like, this is it. I was like, it's the albums and the print. And fast forward today, when I talk to photographers, I remind them, I'm like, the money is not in the images. The money's in the memories. And the memories only last if they are off of digitals. They only last if they're hanging in someone's house or on someone's bookshelf. Other than that, they're on their cell phone and they're going to die. They're on Facebook or they're going to die.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point as photographers, we need to start thinking about the disservice that we do when we don't offer print products, because how good would you feel if I tell you that those clients that spend a good amount of money paying you to have these memories are not going to have them maybe even 5 years down the road, not even that far back? Their computer is going to be gone, it crash, their hard drive that they saved these pictures on are probably going to get lost or at some point stop working. And then what? Facebook might not exist in a few years. We've gone through some social media that has come and gone. Like, where are those pictures going to live? So, in 20 years down the road, when they want to show them to kids and grandkids, they're not going to have that. It is because you did not take the time to offer them the opportunity to have those memories in a place where they can hold on to with their own hands and look at it on their walls. So, are you okay with knowing that these people that trusted you with their very special day are not going to have those memories in a few years down the road?
And you know what? Most photographers will say yes. They are okay with that. Right. So here's the mindset shift, right? And this is where the storytelling comes in, is when I flip it back on them. And I do this exercise with my students and I say, tell me a picture. Like, think of somebody important in your life and think of a picture that you have of them, the most important person in your life. And it's just like, tell me about that picture. And they'll explain this picture in detail,
Hmm.
right? And they'll explain all the memories and everything, what that means to them. And I'm like, if I took that picture away from you and said, you can only get it back if you pay me, how much would you pay for it? Every last photographer will be like, well, like anything you want. Like that's the last picture I have of that person. They're like, this is the most meaningful thing. Like, I would probably pay anything that you want. And I was like, that's where the value is. And so it's so hard to step outside of this artistic field because it's so personal, right? This the artwork that we do is so personal. When people critique us, we want to like stab them in the eye and be like, no, my work is better. Like all the things,
Yeah.
but as you said, we're a service provider. Like, we have to position ourselves as we are solving problems for our clients. And the problem is that the people that they invited in front of their camera mean something to them. The people that they invited to the session, the people that they invited to the wedding, at that time, they are the most important people in that moment. And if we don't treat them as such, then again, we are not completing the service. We're not doing that justice. And people will pay. People will pay for that. And they have paid. And they pay handsomely too.
Oh, yeah. 100% agree. I can attest to that. So let's take them through a little bit of the logistics of
Yep.
things.
Let's do
What
it.
was the process that you went through to figure out what to offer and where to get it from? Because that's overwhelming to begin with to a lot of people. And that's at times where I hear that's one of the reasons why people don't even do it, because they don't even know where to start.
Yep, they don't know where to start. So the first thing to start is, before you get any products, there needs to be an exploration, right? We need to find some connection to why prints matter. So I always recommend that people start printing out their own pictures of their own family, right, and having those conversations. But before you do anything for any clients, like, you have to have that for yourself, and not only have it to look at, but have conversations around those moments, because then you start to see what those pictures mean to your loved ones. And then you're able to communicate that back to your clients, right? Because we can go to Miller's, we can go to WHCC, we can go to all the platforms and buy the biggest prints and everything. But if we can't communicate the value to that, then it means nothing. They're not going to sell. And the best way to communicate the value is for you to believe it in yourself. So the first step is to print out your own pictures of your own family and of your own loved ones and let that sink in. And then the second step is to figure out brand alignment with the companies that you want to print with.
Yeah.
So your what you offer has to complement what it is that you do as an artist and who you are as a company. So, for example, I like, timeless work with a little bit of modernization, right? And so when I was searching for album companies, I was like, I need something that is timeless, but also has that punch to it. And I found a wooden album, and I found it with Color, and that's my biggest seller. These wooden albums, my clients love it. My wedding clients love it because they're like, I've never seen a wooden album. Like, it's so unique, but it still has that timelessness to it. Like, it's never going to fade or deter. And so that's what I mean about like actually studying the companies and the products and believing in like this is why I sell this. This is what matters. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. This is what it smells like. It's all those senses, right? I remember you said you took, psychology classes.
Yeah.
This is all psychology right here,
100%.
right? This is the best way to get someone on board to what you're doing is to engage their senses. Have them touch, feel, smell, all the tears, everything with a product that you love. Not that you're like, okay, this is easy, like if they want it, they can have it, but a product that you absolutely love. So that brand alignment, do your research. And maybe that may take some time. Maybe you start with a local company and then maybe you graduate after research to some place that you absolutely love. And maybe that someplace is not even in the States because there's a lot of companies all around the world that have amazing products. And maybe those products aren't even from the same company, right? You can kind of mix and match, but find something that you love because once you love it, it makes it so much easier to talk about it.
100%. Yeah, I love that concept. I'm a big like walk the walk, talk the talk kind of person. I feel like once you spend the money, and when I order things for myself in the beginning, I pay the full price. Like I want to feel I want to experiment the feeling of if I pay an X amount of dollars, do I feel like it was worth it once I have the product? So I actually made a list of places that I wanted to look at. I ordered products from each one of those places. I tried them out. I looked for the quality. I had things hanging on my wall that fell after a couple weeks of being hanging there. And I'm like, yep, not going to be in my product list that I offer to my
Yeah.
clients. Did
Yeah.
not pass the quality test. I would hate for that to be happening at my client's house after they pay a lot of money for their product. So try it out. But also think about, again, going into the psychology of pricing and helping people make decisions when it comes to buying. Don't offer too many things.
Oh man.
Let's dive into that a little bit. So think about options that make sense. Eliminate paralysis by analysis. Make it efficient for your clients to choose. So let's talk about that a little bit. I know you have
So
lots to
yeah,
say
yeah.
about it
So
too.
I talk about the Cheesecake Factory. That menu is so overwhelming. It's so I get the same two things because every time I look at it, there's like 6 pages and the font is so small. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what do I want? And I'm just like, I'm just gonna get what I always get. I get the menu every time, look through it, and still get what I always get because it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to photographers, I'm just like, if I'm doing this as a consumer, right? Just imagine all the inundation that your clients get, like those exhaustive menus, those warehouses of stuff, right? Yes, there are some clients that like going to thrift stores and like searching for their own stuff and picking that stuff out. And there are other clients that will literally travel to Italy, go into a boutique shop that they have 15 things hanging up, and someone would just take off the rack for them. And it's like there are different types of people who like a certain type of experience, right? And going to that pricing analysis is figure out what the experience is that you want for your clients, right? And we're not talking about the experience of photography. We're talking about the experience of working with you, like as a company. All of our clients are consumers just like we are. The way that we buy from other companies is the same way that our clients are buying from us. And if we don't like something, then we need to stop doing it.
Hey, wedding photographers and event planners. Say goodbye to time chaos with Timeline Pro. Our app turns your workflow into a breeze, letting you create and customize stunning wedding day timelines in minutes. Share them with clients and vendors for instant feedback, all within the app. No more endless emails and coordinating headaches. With our easy to use templates, shot list tracker, and sunset timings, your planning becomes as joyful as the events you're crafting. Dive into a stress free planning experience and make every wedding a masterpiece. Download Timeline Pro now and transform the way you plan weddings and events. For more, visit timelineproapp.com.
If we don't like the way that we've been treated, we don't like the menu, we don't like all the offerings, it's too much, then don't offer it. Just because the person next door is doing it doesn't mean that it's right. And that's part of, brand alignment and believing and say, hey, this is what's for me. This is what I like. This is what meshes for me. So if I'm only going to have 10 things on my price list, these are just the 10 things. And more often than not, your clients will not ask you for other stuff because
100%, yeah,
they see
agreed.
what they see and they're used to that. They see the options. This is what here. There's not gonna be like, oh, can we do this and that and the other thing? Yes, you might have some outliers, but the majority of people will not do that. They will see the option, they will see the price, and they'll be like, okay. And it's that easy. And that I think the biggest problem is that as artists, right? Because we're all artists. Some people have a business background, and so it's easier for them to make this transition. Most people don't. Most people come and it's just like, I like this. I've been photographing since I was born. And, I'm going to start making money and trying to figure this stuff out. And they don't want to charge because they're just like, well, that's a lot of money. And I'm like, but aren't you deserving of it? Like isn't it worth it to one, have the lifestyle you want to live, and two, the only people who thinks it's a lot of money is you. Your clients are absolutely fine with doing it. And so part of the pricing stuff that I talk about is unpacking our own trauma behind money.
So, are you saying that most of us are accidental CEOs? They don't know or
They
have
don't
business
know.
backgrounds and
Yeah.
apply our own values to our clients' purchases?
It seeps in. And
Uh,
what's interesting is that along this journey of sales that I've been on this sales journey for about 4 years now. And not only learning about it, but actually reading books outside of the industry, talking to people, doing workshops, and also practice, right? Tons and tons of practice. I'm not going to lie to your audience. When I started this, if I did in person sales on 10 clients, 8 of them said no, and 2 of them said yes. Right. And when I talk about failure, part of having a mindset is like, you can't see failure as an obstacle. Like, it's room for learning. Like, what could I have done better? Like, each of those 8 clients that said no, I learned something and I got better at it. And maybe I changed my language, or I changed my approach, or I tightened up my workflow, or I added something this in. So now every client, it's expected. They know they're going to spend a certain number of money. They know this is what they're going to get. It is a trial and error. You have to figure it out. You have to tweak it, but you can't give up. And that's the whole thing about CEO, right? You have to have the mindset that this is going to work. Whether I fall today or fall tomorrow, we're going to get back up and this is going to work.
and that's 2 more people than if you haven't offered that to any of those 10.
Yes,
So let's
right?
look at it that way, right?
But that's that's
But
that's what it's all about. It's about paying attention, right? It's about understanding, and there's a lot of psychology in it, which photographers forget how much psychology work that they do on a regular basis. And it's just reframing. That's all it is. I like to challenge my students to unpack all of their own buying practices, right? Unpack all the stuff that they like, that they don't like, and then craft an experience that they want their clients to have. And then it becomes easy.
Again, if you go through it yourself, you start understanding a little bit more of why. If you've never spent money to buy your own album with your family pictures, you would have a hard time explaining to your clients why that's a good idea, why they should have those memories, because you haven't gone through it yet. A lot of times we project our own beliefs into our, I tell, we spend our
Yep.
client's money for them. We try to
Yes.
spend our client's money for them, which is a terrible idea because you might not be your ideal client, first of all. Let's start with that thought. I've sold albums for more than people pay for entire weddings. Like people would gladly give you money for memories that they value.
Hmm.
So understanding that you have to, like you said, peel out the layers of your own beliefs and just help present that to your clients in a manner that it will help them see the value. That money comes off that wallet very easy. And they will thank you. They would spend a lot of money and they will thank you for that.
And that's the hard part that takes people getting over is like, oh my God, this is a lot of money. But it's like, but your clients want to spend it. Like I remember I just did a Mediterranean cruise with my family last year. We're big bougie people. We did a Disney cruise.
Love it.
We spent 9 days on the cruise, 4 days in Barcelona, and then 4 days in Rome afterwards. Like that was a hefty bill. But I don't regret any of it because my children had the best time. The fact that my now 6-year-old can name all the countries he went to and all the experiences that he did at 6, me like I'm not even thinking about the money that I spent at all. I'm thinking about those experiences. And I think that the challenge in getting over that mindset is just like they want to spend the money. Like these people who are making these luxury purchases have already prepared themselves for it. They've already done the finances. They've already done the savings. They've already had the conversations with parents or friends or family if they're getting money from places. They've already done that. They're just waiting for you to do the ask. They're just waiting for you to be like, this is how much it is because they already know, and they already know because you've done the work to prep them. And so that's the other part is that no one wakes up one day and wants to buy a car. No one wakes up. No one wakes up out of sleep and is like, I'm just going to go buy a Mercedes. There's a lot of prep work that comes into that, you know? And so as photographers, you definitely have to do the prep work for your client, and you have to massage them, and you have to remind them, and you have to tell them about the importance of it. When I teach photographers, it's the first time that they interact with you, they need to know that you're selling prints and albums on social media, in the emails, on your website, before they even contact you for a discovery call or for a consultation. They need to already know that when they work with you, they're going to walk away with prints and albums. Because then you're not selling them. Then it's like, oh, how many pages is the album?
Just have to choose.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like how large is the print? How many prints you want? What type of collage you want on your wall? Then it just becomes a quantity question.
Tell us a little bit. I want to know, what products do you offer today to your clients? What did you narrow down to at this point in your career?
Gotcha. So I primarily sell albums to all weddings and portrait clients. And then my portrait clients also get wall art. So especially with families, we'll do canvas collages plus an album. And for weddings, we mostly do albums and multi-volume albums, depending on how large the wedding is. But I am your album guy. And part of positioning myself as a storyteller is the way that I photograph. A lot of photographers put a time limit on their, like, I'm only photographing for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes you're paying more, or I'm only photographing for like this amount of time, right? And I've changed my mindset and say, you know what, if I take more pictures, they're going to want to buy more, right? If I stay, the extra 15 minutes, if I'm like choose a different location. Now, these pictures can't be repetitive. Like there's logic to this. Like there's a whole science to making sure that you take pictures that they're not choosing between 5 of them that look the same. There's that one picture that looks just like this in this outfit in this location, and if they decide to not keep it, then that's it. That's all they have of that one image. And so strategically capturing those moments and taking those pictures, so that I have captured and covered everything that they could possibly want. If it takes 30 minutes, if it takes an hour, if it takes an hour and a half, I know most people will probably cap out about the hour and a half, 2 hour mark, especially for couples. And for families, depending on little kids, between 45 minutes, and I already understand the time frame in there. But I also know the way that I shoot more, they're going to want more. And so I sell bigger albums because of that, because I know they're going to want all these moments. There's this one family that I'm thinking of where I took pictures of her girls just having a tug of war on a chair. They weren't the best pictures, but the mom loved them because it was of their daughters playing. It was of their daughters playing. That was two spreads in the album, just of their daughters playing. And so had I not taken the 2 minutes that it took to capture that interaction, that's money lost. And so that's the way that I think about it, and that's the way that I sell albums and how I photograph events,
So,
weddings,
yeah,
couples.
albums are definitely your best sellers then.
Yeah.
Let's talk about pricing a little bit because I feel like a lot of people are like, okay, I'm good with the concept of selling things, but I'm not making any money. Maybe I just don't know how to price this. So, how do you price things to have a good net revenue when it comes to your products?
Yeah. So I remember on your second podcast, you had this gentleman that was talking about the cost of business and everything, and I was like, you have to start there, right? Like you have to know how much it is that you want to make, right? I tell photographers you can either make your money on the front end or you can make your money on the back end. I'm the type of photographer who makes my money on the back end. I have a lower threshold, a lower barrier to entry, but I know they're going to be spending a whole lot more on the back end because of my process and the way that it is, right? And they also know that they're going to be spending a lot more money on the back end, and they feel more comfortable with that because they've already had that interaction with me. We've already taken those photos. We've already had that rapport that they're more willing to open up their pockets than if I say, "Oh, this is a $4,000 portrait session." They're like, "What?" Versus if I'm like, oh, okay, this session fee is $300 and you purchase your image separately and their bill comes out to $4,000. They're fine with that. They're absolutely fine with that. So that's, the strategy that I kind of take. And so with my price structure, understanding what it is that I want to make, over the year, what I need to make per month, per client, weddings, such and such. And then also, uh, how much of that I want to make on the back end. So I already have my album prices that already set out, and I don't have a change in price from portraits to weddings to events. You want this album? This is how much it costs, right? And that's what we talk about the paralysis analysis. People like to tier things. They're like, oh, it's not a wedding. They shouldn't be paying wedding prices. You're doing the same work.
An album. An
It's
album, guys.
like you're doing the same work, it's the same size print, like it's the same process. If they want it, they will pay for it. And so the best advice that another photographer gave me when I was on this journey of exploration and figuring out how to make more money in my business was to include albums in my packages for my weddings. And I was trying to sell albums of prints after the fact, and I was unsuccessful with it. And when I realized that for me, it was because they had already felt like everything was done, everything was complete. You know, they weren't missing out on anything, and they would have to pay more to get something, enter into a new contract. So once I started including the packages, I realized, again, going back to psychology, I realized this shift in their mindset. They were like, well, we already paid for this, so we want it. Now that we've already paid for it, we want it. And now what they want more because I show them more. Like I'll show them 150, 200-page albums for my weddings. And I know that they're going to go through this process of taking stuff out, trying to figure out how to save money. And eventually, it never fails. They get to this point where, like, we can't remove anything else. We can't. We can't. They look at each other and just like, there's nothing else we can do. And they pay for it. whether it's payment plans or whether they pay outright, they pay for it. And I think back to your point where you're saying, like, don't spend the money for our clients. We don't know where they're getting this money from at all. That's not our business. Now, my clients make it my business because they have financial conversations around me, right? They're talking about what card they're going to put on. They're talking about, oh, my mom's going to take care of this, or grandma's going to take care of this, or, so, and I realized I was just like, when people want something, they will find a way to get it. It is my job to show them the possibilities. And then if I do my job well, they're going to say yes.
Do you have like, so let's say an album costs you $100 to print, just for the sake of
Yep.
numbers and math.
Yep. Let's do math. So,
How
so
how much how many times that price, that cost to you are you gonna start with?
yep. So realistically, my albums probably cost around $300, right? So I order from a company, Color. They're a little more luxury albums. So like your Color, your Graphy, your Album Epica, all the European companies, they're a little bit pricier, right? So if I have $300 for an album, that is 20, 30 pages maybe. I know that I want to probably have a times 8 markup based off of my cost of doing business. So at base level, I'm going to sell a 10-page album for $2,800, right? And then I multiply that by the number of pages. So I sell per page. So it's base in their package. This is what it is. And then they add additional pages. So when you're talking about multi-volume albums, we're talking about 150-page albums. I'm selling pages for $50 a page, $100 a spread. Like that stuff adds up very, 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 very quickly. Very quickly. And the same thing goes for family portraits, right? I know that they're probably going to want a 20-page, 30-page album. They know the prices. They see it right there. It's like, this is how much it is. This is how much extra pages are. This is how much your spread is that you absolutely loved for all the prints. Everything is right there. And so during our meetings, whether it's my portraits or whether it's my weddings, I use Funny Designer to showcase all of this stuff to them
Mhm.
so that they
Game
can see
changer.
it. I'm not trying to describe it to them, right? Because when we talk about senses, they need to touch, they need to see, they need to feel. During our first consultation, I bring albums with me. I do same day IPS with some clients, and I'll have albums. I don't even have a studio. Let's be clear. I don't have a photography studio. I'm bringing albums with me to Panera, right? To Starbucks, and doing consultations because it's so important that they touch it in their hands the first time we interact together. That's what that ends up looking like. And my recommendation for any photographer, when you buy your products, max it out. Don't buy samples. All these companies will give you discounts on samples, and oh, this sample album costs, like it comes with 20 pages. Max that thing out. If you're a wedding photographer, show them a 100-page, 150, 200-page wedding album. Because guess what? Whatever you put in your client's hands, they will want. If you put a 20-page album in their hands, you're going to think that all I need is 20 pages.
Show what you wanna sell.
Show what you want to sell. This is the not so fun part about business for photographers, right? Because they have to shift their brain from the art to the business, right? Because it is, we're talking about business, we're trying to make money, and there's psychology that comes into it, and you have to reframe and say, okay, the majority of the work that we do as photographers, our camera is not in our hands at all. The majority of the money that we make has a lot to do with what we say and how we communicate than the pictures that we take. Like how we make people feel on a regular basis is going to contribute to how much money we make in our business.
Amen. Amen. I love it. I 100% believe in the power of printed products, and I'm so glad that we're sharing all these great tips with everybody. What is the main message that you want to make sure our listeners come out of today's interview with?
My main message is that you are worth whatever price you're charging. I think more often than not, I get a lot of pushback and objections from photographers to say, well, I shouldn't charge that much, or that's too much money. No one will pay for it. you know? And my response is that the shoes that you have on right now, they probably cost $2 to make, and you probably paid well over $100 for them.
Mhm.
This is business. There are markups in everything that we do. And then the next objection is, well, I'm not a salesperson. Okay. And this is where I get all of the lovely women that come to my coaching classes. And I'm like, you go to nail salons and hair salons. You go in with a number in your head of how much you're going to spend, and you come out spending way more than that number. Right? And it's like, why? It's because they are selling to you without you even knowing it. And if you didn't know that you were being sold to, and you were just all of the emotions, you want to feel good, and they made you feel good, and you like the color of the nails, and you like the massaging of the feet and all of the other stuff, you walked out feeling good. And you're not thinking about how much you spent. The moment you make your clients feel good, they're not going to think about the number. And so it's reverse engineering those buying practices. So that's it. That's it. Like, you are worth whatever number you want to charge your clients. If you want to say, hey, I'm selling albums for $10,000, go right ahead. If you want to start at $1,000, that's fine too. But you are worth whatever number, and don't dare let any other photographer tell you otherwise.
Sell it for 10,000 and come back and tell us how you did it. We can all do it too.
Yeah. I just photographed my first $15,000 wedding.
Wow.
Right.
Nice.
And I am not the world's best wedding photographer. And the reason why I share this with people is because people who are not, in all the magazines and winning all the awards, they are still profitable. They are still making money in their business. And it's because I know how to connect with people. I know that this client, they bought an engagement album. How many photographers are selling engagement albums? They're just giving away engagement pictures. No, you get an engagement album. You get a wedding album. Oh, you get a parent album. Oh, I have prints for grandparents. Like, this is a whole family thing. The number of important people at your wedding day, they need something tangible to remember your day by. And I have a solution for that.
Amazing. Michael, tell everybody, where can they find you to learn more
Yes.
from you
So
and
feel
all
free
the things?
feel free to go on my website, mtdphotography.com. And I have an education page. If people want to learn more, they can schedule coaching sessions. MTD Photography 1914 on Instagram, and then MTD Photography on TikTok. I'm really active on TikTok. Like, that's my jam
I love it. We're going to
right
go
there.
follow you there for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. But
Well, thank you,
it's
everyone.
all fun.
Yes, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I think that we had so many great tips for you. We both truly believe that, giving our clients a better service by giving them tangible memories is the way to go. So hopefully this was helpful. For those of you who were on the fence, thinking about it, if you should do it or not, 100% you'll be helping your clients have a better experience if you do it. We can't wait to see you in the next episode. And I hope you guys have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nata Salvatori, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.